to kind of exercise our creative and critical thinking skills on issues that the community hears about. And so our intention is not to just use the community, but also to try to give something back. And so our hope is to participate with dozens of other dedicated people who are interested in sustaining what Danville does great and leveraging our strengths and moving us forward. And so getting feedback from the community is an important part of this process. And so I'd like to emphasize that these are projects that are in progress. And so what that means is that when we have time for questions at the end, we encourage you to ask them, even if they're critical. And then if they might be too critical and you want to just come up to the speaker afterwards and share your thought or your suggestion, then that's more than welcome also. So I'm going to start with Ethan and Ashley, and then we'll go from there. Thanks very much.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Ethan.
I'm Ashley.
And we're here to talk to you guys about practicing local economic development as a central theme. So this goes over some themes such as like improving quality of life and improving income. But today I'm going to be talking to you about the development strategy. Ashley's going to be talking to us about sustainable practices, and I'll start and then we'll go after her. But yes. Okay, so I just want to start off my presentation by a show of hands, how many of you all think that people in Danville County are aware of the local economic development initiatives in the RKG implementation article? That is kind of a mouthful. Well, that's kind of my point, which is there's insufficient amount of awareness of people knowing the objectives and initiatives of local economic development within Danville, Boyle County. So, to go through my presentation, I want to outline what I'm going to be talking about. So first I'm going to be talking about the stakeholders, and then I'm going to be talking about what we're doing and some solutions with evidence, how we can improve this. So to start off, stakeholders. So who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders are technically all of us, the citizens, and the small businesses. So specifically, like I just said earlier, I want to talk about the citizens and the small businesses. So how are the citizens directly affected? Well, citizens can start initiatives. They can become investors in the programs. When I was reading the RKG implementation article, I found that entrepreneurial programs were highly encouraged to help the supply side of economics. Another thing is small businesses. How are they affected? Well, small businesses, they can also become investors. Since they're a larger, a bigger entity, they can have a bigger say and help fill in gaps in the workforce and employment sectors, such as tourist industry and the hotel industry, for examples. So, what have we been doing? Well, like I was mentioned earlier, there's an RKG implementation article, which is this really long document that's like 100 pages, and it's really hard for me to believe that a lot of citizens would just read 100 pages of strategies and objectives that we should do as a community to boost local economic development. So that leads me to my solutions. So what should we do? Well, we should go through and look through all forms of communication. Some sources that really helped me were Tom Poland, Ben Nelson, Jody Lassiter, and even Professor Mahler. They all helped me find information and help create key solutions into promoting awareness of local economic development. So, while talking to all of them, I found that through radio, through newspapers, although they may not reach a younger generation or a younger audience, they will hit a higher demographic, and people ages from 40 and up. And this is a key way to help people who are in the older workforce to know more about initiatives, programs, and things that are missing in our community that can be filled. Another way is through community forums and question and answers. We can incentivize people to come with snacks and stuff as well, which sounds silly, but snacks always usually get people going. But this would create feedback, like a two-way channel. People ask questions, is this really happening? And then with information and preparation, we can tell them and inform them about local economic development. Lastly, or actually another thing before is informational brochures. This is an idea I was talking with Mr. Tom Poland, who's with Develop Danville. And he said through informational brochures, through like public libraries and schools, it can help get to kids and then even get to households, because Danville County is not known for its wide broadband. So through these channels, they can go directly to the households without having to use an internet connection. And lastly is the huge thing is social media. I was talking to Hal Good, who works here in Develop Danville, and he said that the social media sector is not widely as exploited as it could be. So we can hammer down on that, because social media is like the future, as we all know. All of us have like a smartphone in our pockets, playing games, going on Facebook, Instagram, chatting with people. I even researched that around $27 billion are going to be invested into social media marketing this year nationwide, which is crazy. So how would I do this though? I would inform the public through short, like 2-minute videos around there, through Facebook, Instagram, all those, informing people what even is local economic development and what's going on through like bi-monthly or even monthly or even weekly videos. So overall, through forms of communication, like I stated, social media, informational brochures, newspaper, radio, community forums, and Q&As, I feel like a more aware Danville is a community Danville that can be bolstered through the economy. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I know we have Ashley Rice.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashley Rice, and for my presentation, I'm going to be focusing more on the sustainability and quality of life aspects of local economic development. And to start off, I wanted to give you some statistics to think about. Did you know coal accounts for over 40% of the world's electricity production? And this accounts for over 48% of global carbon dioxide emissions. However, did you also know coal is responsible for around $600 million in state revenue for the region? Even in Danville, Liberty Mining Consultants accounts for nearly $200,000 in revenue. The reason I'm sharing this with you is to show that though it may not be easy to see, Kentucky is affected by climate change. And since maintaining coal jobs is absolutely essential for Kentucky and Danville's economy, what else could Danville do to reduce our carbon footprint? Before I get into that, however, I want to first provide you with a brief outline. I'll start by addressing the problem itself, focusing on 2 main aspects, awareness and accessibility. I'll then go into the details of my proposed solution, a community green fund, and I'll finish by saying what this solution can do for Danville. So I'll start by addressing issues with awareness of this problem. Rising temperatures cause an increase in evaporation, which dries the soil and decreases the amount of rain runoff into rivers. It is estimated that the changing climate is likely to reduce crop yields and prolong droughts, both of which would greatly weaken the economy of Kentucky. Specifically, by the end of the century, climate change is expected to cost Kentucky a 7.9% decline in GDP, which is the 4th largest decline in the nation. Higher temperatures also contribute to cases of heat stroke, dehydration, and increases the formation of smog. All of these things contribute to the quality of life for an area, and a lot of people may not be aware of them. Now to address accessibility to green practices. Investing in environmentally friendly practices will save these institutions money in the long run. The high startup costs are what's keeping them from doing this already. Bigger environmental changes have a much longer return on investment, but smaller changes have a return that's much faster. This green fund would focus primarily on these small changes and improve access to sustainable alternatives by covering this high startup cost. Now that I've addressed the problem itself, I'll delve a little bit deeper into my proposed solution. And I'll start by talking about accessibility again. Research has proven that some type of stimulus or funding program has a significantly positive effect on accessibility to green alternatives. And rather than applying for federal grants or subsidies, I believe the City of Danville can implement its own funding through the community, and we could call this the Green Fund. Once established, local institutions can apply to receive grants for investing in environmentally friendly practices. Local businesses, schools, and community members can all contribute through donations. This could be done through programs with the public library or Center College, or even promotion from local businesses. We could also add a column in the local newspaper or a social media page for the Green Fund. It can include how the fund has been investing its money, a list of upcoming events, and just more general information about the green cause. So now that I've gone into my problem and solution, here's how this could help Danville. Through this fund, a local restaurant could start composting. We could provide more recycling bins in our schools. A local business could invest in a carpool service or any number of green initiatives. It could also be used to improve walkability in our town, which is something Danville residents have voiced concern for. This would not only improve quality of life, but also sustainability, as the use of cars for transportation would decrease. Aside from reducing effects on health, crops, and natural resources, implementing a green fund would also be great publicity for our town and its businesses. This could improve tourism, which is actually an initiative being put in place by local economic developers right now. Cutting sustainability costs allows these businesses to spend their money improving their company, and like I said, sustainability is more cost efficient in the long run. As mentioned in our local economic development textbook, any growth that is destructive to the environment cannot maintain itself. And as I mentioned earlier, funding programs have seen great success in promoting sustainability. For example, Penn State University actually has a very similar type of funding program. It was implemented in 2009 and is still in operation today. Through this, Penn State has been able to initiate a soil conservation plan, practice sustainable plant management, among countless other things. For an example, right here in Danville, Denyo, a manufacturing company, has made the switch to solar. These panels are coming from another local business, Wilderness Trace Solar, so they would be benefiting from this as well. Joey Harris, plant manager of the Danville facility, says, "It's an investment to grow in the future. It's an investment in Kentucky." The countless amenities Danville supplies to its residents provide a great quality of life, but as I've shown you, this can change. Clean air and a greener future are amenities these days. By investing in forms of sustainable practices, no matter how small, Danville can improve quality of life in tourism, make our economy more productive and sustainable, and create a cleaner, healthier world for future generations. Thank you. Okay, and up next, Emily and Maggie will be talking to you all about boosting productivity.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily and
I'm Maggie.
we are talking about boosting individuals' productivity through substance abuse rehabilitation and mental health. So substance abuse is a big problem both nationally and locally, and it's a huge obstacle for local economic development in a number of ways. So we're looking at, specifically in Danville, there are a number of indicators that suggest that this is a big problem here. So according to an Eva McDowell study, about 2.5% of Boyle County residents reported using illicit substances in the past 30 days, which was actually higher than most of the surrounding counties. And these were all individually reported, so it's pretty likely that the estimates are actually a bit higher than that. And similarly, there was a report done that overdose deaths in 2012, there were less than 5 annually in Boyle County, whereas in 2016 there were 19. So it's suggesting that not only are rates pretty high around here, they're also increasing, which is obviously very detrimental to the community as a whole. So how does this affect local economic development? It affects local economic development through quality of life is lower for all residents, as well as it's decreasing labor force participation and productivity as a whole. So there are a number of empirical studies that have been done showing like a causal link between frequent drug use and negative labor force outcomes. So people who use drugs frequently are much less likely to be employed, and they're also, if they are employed, are likely to work fewer hours. And that's not even taking into account the fact that they're probably less productive on the job and can potentially have safety issues in the workplace. Additionally, there are a number of economic costs, such as like health costs and treatment costs that come into play with substance abuse. But actually 80% of all of the costs included for substance abuse come from lost productivity. So it's actually a huge problem for the labor force. And it's even exacerbated in Boyle County by the fact that we have a very low unemployment rate. It was actually about 3.9% in December of 2017, which means that businesses are really scrambling to find workers that fit their needs. And so we really can't afford to have the lost productivity that comes from substance abuse in this area. So it's a really big problem. Fortunately, Danville is already doing a lot of things to address it. So I'll start by talking about inpatient and outpatient treatments. I'm not sure if everyone knows what that is. So inpatient treatment is when the treatment center actually provides residents, and so people like live on site and live in substance-free housing, and it's pretty intensive. Outpatient, they can live in their own home and go in like a few times a week for treatment. And so Danville has a number of outpatient treatments, outpatient treatment programs throughout Danville and Boyle County, so that's really great. And there are no inpatient treatments in Boyle County, but there are programs that actually facilitate people can come from Boyle County to Lexington or to Louisville and have transportation for free, so that transportation is not an issue. So that's really great too. Then we have programs in the Boyle County Jail, such as staff, where they can get rehabilitation inside the jail. Unfortunately, that's mostly for state inmates who might not be Boyle County residents. And then there's a high number of drug arrests that the police are doing to try and combat the problem that way. Unfortunately, that leads to a number of other problems, such as we have a very overcrowded jail, and people who end up going to jail are often come back even after that. So it's potentially not the most effective way to deter drug use in the local community. So that problem brings me to my main solution, which is to utilize a program that already exists here, which is the Shepherd's House. So Shepherd's House has a number of programs, but I'm mostly advocating for the day reporting intensive outpatient program. So how this program works is that someone who has been convicted of a crime related to drug use that's not a felony can actually be sent to this program for outpatient rehabilitation and be on parole rather than serve a jail sentence. So that's pretty effective because it decreases the problem, which is the overcrowded jail, and it helps people get rehabilitated so that they're less likely to end up in jail and make the same mistakes again. So what makes this program really effective is that it focuses on the whole person. So it doesn't just provide treatment for drug use, it also provides counseling for mental health, things like wellness programs for exercise and dietary needs, and just generally connecting people with mentors so that they have a better community and are able to cope with these problems a lot better. And very importantly for my presentation is that they also work with the Circle of Hope, which provides employment opportunities for all of the clients there. So this provides them with soft skills that they need to get jobs. It provides them with ways to practice for interviews, build resumes, they can get their GED, and so it's really effective in two ways, in that it promotes rehabilitation, helps the substance abuse problem, as well as providing job training and helping these people fit the needs of the community as far as jobs. So, additionally, it's not only effective, it's also very cost effective. It's estimated that between April and December of last year, it saved over $156,000 for the community. And so the way that happens is that it's mostly funded by outside sources like state and federal funding, as well as philanthropy. And so it only costs the county $13 a day per inmate to house them in the Shepherd's House, as opposed to $31 a day on average to house them in the jail. So putting someone through this program, it actually costs them about half of what it would to have them in the jail itself. So it's really cost effective. And my solution is that it's not being used to the fullest extent, and that there are 60 spots open at a time, and at the end of March we were only using 25. And so there's a lot of room that we can use this program a lot more efficiently, especially since it is so cost effective. And so what we need to do is, so there are a number of reasons why that happens. Some of it is that people are graduating, which is really great, but it's hard to fill up those spots because people, sometimes there's miscommunication between the jail and the program, who has to recommend people who are eligible for it, and so there is problems with the data coming from the jail, as well as working with courts and judges to recommend people for this treatment rather than to go to jail. So I think one of the most effective things that we can do as a community is, in the immediate short run, is to fully utilize the Shepherd's program.
Hi, I'm Maggie Brochures, and I'm going to be talking today mostly about the issue of mental health and its quality in Boyle County. In the Boyle County community, poor mental health is starting to become a serious issue. According to a survey run by Ephrem McDowell Regional Hospital every 2 years, about 40% of the Boyle County residents report having symptoms of chronic depression. In addition, 60% of Boyle County residents report feeling moderate to extreme stress daily. And these high levels of stress and depression cause a lot of issues for individuals in terms of their work and their education. Individuals who are working and suffer with depression and anxiety tend to experience a huge loss in productivity. In the United States, there's an annual average loss of about $1 trillion due to lack of productivity in workers that have anxiety and depression. Students with similar issues are more at risk for truancy and suspension. There's a lot of countless negative effects that poor mental health has on individuals, and most of these effects are found in the workplace and in schools. So my solution would be implemented in each of these settings. And this solution includes the use of mindfulness programs. This program would consist of 2 15-minute periods throughout the day where workers and students would be given time to focus on their meditation. And there are many different forms of meditation, but most consist of deep breathing and silence and focusing on relaxation. A variety of mindfulness programs offer their curriculum online for little cost or completely free, and all the techniques are completely reusable, so it's very cost effective. There have been many recent studies that look into the positive effects of mindfulness meditation. Dr. Sarah Lazar, who works for the Harvard Medical School and the Massachusetts General Hospital, took brain scans of individuals to see how meditation affected their brain chemistry. In one of her studies, she compared brain scans of individuals before and after an 8-week meditation program. The study showed that after 8 weeks of meditation, the participants had increased gray matter in the following areas. The first is the posterior cingulate, which is in charge of focus and self-relevance. The second is the hippocampus, which aids in learning and cognition, as well as memory and regulating emotion. The third is the temporoparietal junction, which basically allows our brain to feel emotions like empathy and compassion. And then the fourth is the pons, which relays signals in our brain, and it also has a large role in sleep. While these 4 areas increased in size, there was also a decrease in the general size of participants' amygdalas, which controls our perception and our response to fear. So this decrease in size was linked to a decrease in stress as well. The reason that meditation has this effect on the brain in these areas is because that the brain is the brain has a lot of plasticity, which means that basically the brain operates on a use it or lose it level. So neural connections that are not being used over time weaken, and ones that are being used over time strengthen. So when practicing meditation, the pathways that are connected to focus and memory and emotion control are all being used, so they're becoming stronger. With these pathways becoming stronger, those who use meditation not only feel the effects when they are meditating, but they also feel the effects throughout their daily life. So that can explain why meditation has great effects on individuals who choose to use it. And again, these effects were found only after 8 weeks of a daily 30-minute mindfulness program. So I propose a similar program that would be implemented in both schools and the workplace. This program has the ability to decrease levels of stress in the community while increasing focus, and then also increasing the general sense of happiness. It would teach workers and students how to improve their mental health, which would strengthen the Boyle County community as a whole. Thank you. Up next, we have Liya Chen and Abigail discussing supporting job acquisition and retention.
presenting on issues that can be barriers for individuals entering and maintaining a job in the workforce. I don't want to do this. How many of you have ever seen someone doing this before a presentation? Or have done it yourself? No? Just me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Okay. If someone does this kind of thing before a presentation, would you be more interested in what that person is going to say, even though it might be really important? Or would you be thinking, what was that? Well, my topic today will be on how improving soft skills, so among prospective employees will increase the productivity in the workforce. The modern workplace is more interpersonal than ever. While hard skills such as computer programming, accountancy, or anything that requires a degree or certificate are important and necessary in certain positions, soft skills are more universal and can be used across any divisions. The term soft skills is broadly defined. It could range from personal etiquette such as firm handshakes or being on time or just being polite to abilities to work with others such as listening and collaborating with others and presenting ideas and communicating with your with team members. Those skills are highly valued in the modern workplace because they are the key to connect people with different abilities to work together towards the same goal. The reason why I believe soft skills is an important topic to discuss about is I personally struggle with it, public speaking and talking over the phone in particular. I can give you 2 examples within the past 2 days. 2 days ago, we were having a presentation right here. I was hiding like this behind the desk because I was so scared and so nervous, even though it was just my classmates and my professor. Still scared. And yesterday, when I was talking to Dr. Mahler, she asked me if I have email Hal or call Greg to get the information I needed. I was like, no, I can't do this. What if what if I annoy them with all the questions? What if I can't articulate myself properly over the phone? What if? So as you can see from my 2 examples, my lack of soft skills prevented me from being as productive as I could have been. If I wasted my classmates' time because I was being scared, like I was afraid speaking in front of them, and I should have called Greg last week, but instead I waited till yesterday because there's no way for me to avoid it any longer, because she said my grade will suffer if I don't call them. So what if this happens in the workplace? What if employees can be able to do their jobs properly, not because they don't know how to do the technical part of the job, but that they don't know how to communicate with their team members? That's going to be a problem. So if workers called in sick, but actually they just don't want to work with the colleague, that's going to affect the productivity in the labor force. A survey has found that 75% of the recruiting professionals have cut an interview short because the candidate didn't demonstrate the soft skills they were seeking. Strong soft skills ensure a productive, collaborative, and healthy work environment, which are all vital attributes for organization in an increasingly competitive world. So I believe creating programs on helping people like me to improve their soft skills will be beneficial for the individuals, the company, and the economy as a whole. Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Abigail Kent, and I'm going to be discussing increasing access to transportation in Danville and Boyle County. So I want to start off with a question. How many of you drove your own car to be here today? So looking around, that's quite a few of you. If you consider your daily activities here in Danville, you may come to realize, like I did, that it is next to impossible to get around unless you have your own vehicle. So in addition to that, I began to look into some of the research in Danville and Boyle County as a whole. And if you look at this map, you can see that the darkest color, red, indicates households, over 80 households with no vehicle, and in decreasing concentrations as the color goes down, as you can see in the legend on the screen. So now on this map, I have overlaid the route of the most significant public transportation system in Danville and Boyle County in black, which is DanTran. As you can see from this image alone, DanTran only covers a small portion of the area that needs to be covered by transportation. And this leaves most individuals in use of family, friends, or other organizations for the transportation for daily activities such as going to the doctor's office, going to pick up groceries, driving to work in the morning, or even coming here. So as you can imagine, this essentially makes it makes for very inflexible transportation options for most people if they are required to depend on other people or depend on transportation that must be scheduled in advance to accomplish those sort of day-to-day activities. Yet despite this, the Director of Transportation for the Bluegrass Community Action Partnership, Roger Kirk, recently stated that this route in black is estimated to be used by 6 to 8 people on a daily basis. While others use the Bluegrass Ultra Transit Service, which is their initiative that is the transportation that must be scheduled in advance, and others call on organizations such as the Senior Citizen Center in order to serve their transportation needs, it's clear to me that there is a real disconnect between the transportation services that are being offered and those that are needed by Boyle County residents. Kirk also suggested that there are a number of reasons for why they're unable to solve these kind of disconnects. One of which is that the organization is given a lump sum of federal funding, and they must allocate these resources to Boyle County, Jessamine County, and their initiatives in Frankfort as well. Given that this route costs $100,000 for one driver and one bus, this is becoming rather problematic. He also suggested that another difficulty that they're facing is to recruit and maintain the employment of drivers due to their age restrictions and drug use policy. And while they have made significant progress on improving transportation for citizens of Danville and Boyle County, there is still some work to be done. So in consideration of these issues, I would like to propose a long-term solution for transportation in Danville and Boyle County through the coordination and integration of the school transportation systems and the public transportation systems. In essence, this proposal suggests that the general population would ride along with students on their way to and from school. In communities where this has been implemented, they have made safety the highest priority, ensuring that residents have background checks for everyone who's on the bus and population separation. And in conclusion, it's in essence made the community a more welcoming place, bridging the gap between age and class. This would provide broader opportunities for the workforce and elderly population of Danville, who tend to be the most transportation disadvantaged, through added flexibility in their transportation arrangements. By having both a way to get into Danville, as evidenced by the fact that this entire area is the Boyle County School District, and a way to get around, as they would be able to use the DanTran system that's already in place. This has the potential to not only reduce costs, but also use the existing drivers that are in the school system already, which were two of the main issues that Kirk cited in stating some of the problems that they're facing in rural Kentucky transportation. Further, as residents of Danville and Boyle County, residents are already contributing to a system that many of them are unable to use. While I recognize that there are a number of other barriers to this sort of integration, such as the current regulation that states that only students who are on their route to school may use the school transportation system, communities around the country that are similar to Danville have used this kind of integration to strengthen their workforce and serve transportation disadvantaged populations. So in conclusion, I believe that the coordination and integration of the school transport system and the public transportation system would solve a number of the current challenges that are associated with transportation in Danville, as well as setting a precedent for other rural areas of Kentucky to do the same. Thank you for your time. I'll turn it over to Olivia and Tommy to talk about early childhood education.
All right, so my name is Olivia Schadler, and this is Tommy, and we're going to be talking about improving access to early childhood services. So last fall, the Boyle County Early Childhood Council decided that they were going to apply for a state grant. They wanted to ensure that this grant money be spent in a way that reflected the community needs. So this spring, myself and a team of 2 other center students, along with our faculty mentor, have been conducting an early childhood education community needs assessment. We have been going around door to door. We've sent surveys out through the public schools and the daycares, and even stood outside of Kroger, asking families with children under the age of 5 what their experiences with and their attitudes towards early child care were. And in total, we've collected 450 surveys so far. Before even looking at the data, just based off of our discussions with the Early Childhood Council and our own observations while collecting the survey, it was apparent that Danville is faced with the challenge of connecting families from across the socioeconomic spectrum with high quality early childhood care. So today, I would like to talk about a few of the potential impacts if community needs for early childhood care remain unaddressed, as well as some preliminary findings from our survey and some things that should be kept in mind when formulating solutions. So first, there are a variety of short and long-term concerns if issues around access and quality are not addressed. So first, in the short term, if families are unable to access childcare, parents may be forced to stay at home with their child and forgo work. Additionally, kindergarten readiness rates will likely decline if early childhood education is not providing what it should. This is especially concerning given that the kindergarten readiness rates are already relatively low at only 37% of kindergartners being deemed ready for school in Danville. And lastly, this stands to have serious long-term implications for the productivity of the workforce. Early learning is a really strong indicator of long-term academic and workforce success. So if certain skills aren't developed at an early age, there will likely have to be some sort of remedial academic or worker training programs implemented, which can be extremely costly. So next I would like to look at some of the preliminary findings from the survey. So this chart shows us what families would like to see more of, and overwhelmingly families would like to see more high quality, low cost options. And following is the desire for more full day options over supplemental education, which are things like library story time or half day programs. It is important to note that although supplemental education and half day wasn't as high of a response to those, it's still pretty significant, with around 60 families saying that they would benefit from more half-day programs. So next I would like to look at the deciding factors for family when choosing a child care provider. So the most important one was programs that have a strong focus on the development of child's social skills. And following from that, not surprisingly, is cost. And thirdly, the next highest response was a focus on a child's reading skills. These focus on the development of social skills and reading skills are really interesting because they show us how the Danville community perceives quality in early childhood care. What comprises quality is not always agreed upon in the early childhood realm. And so it is important to know how they perceive it, as well as there is research that show that some factors that make up quality are more play a bigger role than others, which one of these is teacher pay, for example. Danville should really strive to improve quality in the long run because there's a body of research that shows that high quality programs have the largest long-term benefits for not only the student receiving the education, but the community that they live in as well. However, as quality increases, not surprisingly, cost increases. So we need to think of creative solutions to ensure that childcare remains accessible for everyone, no matter what their socioeconomic status is. So in conclusion, there are serious short-term and long-term consequences that could occur if early childhood needs are not met. And when formulating solutions, we must keep the community needs in mind, which the survey is a good first step to do that. And we must strive to improve quality and ensure that early childhood care remains accessible. Thank you.
All right, I'm Tommy Hood. I'm going to be talking about the benefits of preschool. I like to start this presentation off by saying we live in a phenomenal community. We have a top-tier hospital, Ephraim McDowell. We have a low unemployment rate of 5.5%. And if I do say so myself, we have a fantastic college, Center College. So, what can we do to make this community even better? I would recommend increasing access to preschool for working families. Preschool is a curriculum that prepares kids for kindergarten, and not just your ABCs and counting to 10, but increasing children's social skills and emotional recognition. Now, there are a lot of, I'll start by talking about the cost of preschool. There are a lot of regulations on preschool, making it cost around an average of $6,000 a year in Kentucky. And while this price may seem high, it's almost impossible for preschool firms to stay afloat, especially in our community, on a $6,000 rate. Now, this is hard because in a normal market, you say it's hard for firms to stay afloat, you just raise the price. Well, unfortunately, in Danville, the average wage is $21,000 a year. So this is a hard, low wage and a high price that can't be raised. And it leaves the children left out of the equation, leaving them not getting the best child care that they could in our community. But I'll argue that everyone in our community benefits in the long run from high quality preschool, not just the kids, teachers, and parents involved. And what do I have to back this up? Well, children who graduate preschool have a 33% increase in graduating high school. That means they're 2.3 times more likely to volunteer in their community, they're 8 times less likely to be incarcerated, and they have an employment rate 18.7% higher than people who do not graduate high school. What else happens when children attend preschool? There's a 49% increased rate in graduating college. And what does this mean for a community? It means they're 5 times less likely to go to jail. They have an unemployment rate of only 2.5%, which is under half that of the unemployment rate in Danville. And some of these children who go to college in our community will come home and strengthen our local labor force with the complex skills they obtain in college. Now here's the kicker. Children who attend preschool are 28% less likely to be drug dependent in their adult life. So what does this mean for a community? 1 in 6 unemployed people are substance abusers. It's the leading cause of death in Americans under 50, and 60% of drug abusers are unemployed. So why does this matter to you as members of the community? Let me summarize these results. If we increase the quantity and quality of child care firms in our community, the local labor force will be strengthened because the average worker will be more educated. There'll be less crime in our community, causing less social cost. And when these children become adults, they'll be more likely to volunteer. So what should our community do to improve their preschool education? We should not put the whole burden of paying for child care on the parents and firms. And there are a couple ways to do this. The first is that we should increase local taxes because of the positive externalities that come with children attending preschool that I mentioned before. And now I know it's a scary thing to say, increase taxes, but everyone in the community benefits from these children going to preschool. The other way that I've observed is philanthropic donations. To increase the amount of philanthropic donations, we're going to need to seek out members of the community and educate members of the community to donate to this cause. One place that I would suggest going to is the Greek system at Center College. In 2015, the Greek system at Center College raised over $123,000. And if we saw some of this money go to preschool preschool education system in our community, we could see a lot of benefits. So what would we do with this money if it was raised? Well, we look at the demand side of the equation and the supply side of the equation. On the supply side, preschool firms will be able to increase the amount of child care they provide to the public by expanding their firm and increasing their capacity of children. And finally, by allowing low-income families to pay a reduced rate for their child to attend preschool. And on the demand side of the equation, we can lessen the financial burden on parents sending their children to preschool. This would allow more children to attend preschools, especially ones of low income who would not be able to regularly pay. And in the case of some families, they'd be able to choose which preschool to send their child, not just the one that's cheapest that they can afford, but the one that they observe is the best for the child and the community. That's my presentation. Thank you so much. All right. Next, Cameron and Seth will be talking about encouraging local entrepreneurship in our community.
Hi, I'm Cameron Duggins, and this is Seth Rogers, and we will be discussing entrepreneurship, specifically the supply side and the demand sides of rural entrepreneurship, as well as an innovation hub. So, rural entrepreneurship. Small businesses make up 99.7% of U.S. employer firms and play a major role in Danville's economy. However, when we think of small businesses, I would argue we only think of places such as Main Street. Because of its existing industries, Danville is primed to allow rural entrepreneurship to be one of the keys to its future prosperity. So to start my presentation, I would like to give just a brief run through of these three questions. Why is rural entrepreneurship important? Can it be successful? And what can we do? So why is rural entrepreneurship even important? Rural entrepreneurship provides different employment opportunities to all skill sets of labor. Rural entrepreneurship also helps check the urban migration, which is essentially people moving from rural areas to more urban ones. And with people moving into these, or with more opportunities becoming available in rural areas, it will usher in more modern infrastructure following these job opportunities. So can it be successful? Surprisingly, according to empirical studies by Thomas Johnson, rurality does in fact trigger significantly higher levels of entrepreneurship. So there's more entrepreneurial efforts available in rural areas than those in urban ones. So what can Danville do? Danville can promote existing industries, as I will discuss in my solutions, and simply provide opportunities. So my solutions, agritourism and just simply providing opportunities. First, I will discuss the demand side of agritourism. So what is agritourism? According to the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, the act of visiting a working farm or any agricultural, horticultural, or agribusiness operations for the purpose of enjoyment, education, or active involvement in the activities of the farm or operation. So some examples of this. Visiting a pumpkin patch in the fall, or touring horse farms all across Kentucky, or even bourbon distilleries. An example just right down the road would be Wilderness Trail, who has even expanded as recently as 2016 with the addition of a 40-foot tall beer still and a 500-gallon doubler. With Danville's unique location on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, a bourbon boom could be on the horizon. So now my second solution of providing opportunities for success. First, education. A way to educate the youth would be in the form of a career fair, focusing on local opportunities. In fact, this was recently coordinated by Center College, and I believe it is taking the necessary steps to strengthen the local labor market. Exposing the community to opportunities in both rural and urban areas will only be beneficial. Secondly, the Minneapolis Federal Reserve talks about a community very similar to Danville in northeast Minnesota. The Northeast Entrepreneur Fund provides training and loans to adults who are unemployed or underemployed, giving them more opportunity for entrepreneurship. And what it does, it targets individuals, like I said, who are underemployed or unemployed, and provides them loans and education necessary to be able to start their own business. And I think in Danville, that might not necessarily work well because we have a low unemployment rate, but for underemployed people, I think it would be very beneficial. Thirdly, broadband internet access through Kentucky Wired. Currently, as it stands now, in the Boyle County school system, children have tablets. And a lot of times these children go home from school to more rural areas without internet access. So what Kentucky Wired is doing, just recently in February, they have started broadband internet access in Boyle County. And then currently they're moving vertically through Boyle County, spreading broadband internet access. So some of the benefits will go beyond just a balance sheet, like enhancing education, improving government services, enhancing public safety, improving healthcare, and connecting communities as a whole. Rural entrepreneurship is equally as important as entrepreneurship in urban areas. Educating and providing opportunity in existing industries will bolster the Danville economy as a whole. Thank you.
So, good afternoon. My name is Seth Rogers, and I'd like to begin by telling you that I took this class on a little bit of a whim. I'm very glad that I did, but I was a little skeptical at first, and I'm very glad that I did because I really enjoyed the kind of community-based learning that we do in this class, where we engage with the community and kind of use the critical thinking that we learn in a liberal arts education to try and find potential kind of places of improvement and things that we can improve in the community. And I kind of asked the question for my project, why don't we expand this and make it a bigger thing in the college? Because I see an opportunity for a kind of symbiotic relationship between Center College and Danville. So in class a few months ago, we mentioned entrepreneurial incubators as kind of a method of economic development. And I began looking into these as something that maybe Center could set up. And I eventually stumbled on kind of the title of an innovation hub. And innovation, I use the term very loosely because I want this to include any kind of thing that involves the community and has that kind of critical thinking that a liberal arts education takes advantage of. So specifically, I'd like to talk about kind of the pros and cons of this. Mostly the cons, honestly. These have a tendency to, when they're not implemented properly, kind of not work, simply put. And that is because oftentimes, well, they don't work because they end up being cost inefficient, and they try to kind of put entrepreneurship into a sort of checklist of things that you have to do, and that's not really how it works. It's a very creative process, and you have to have that kind of freedom of creative thinking. So, for example, a lot of people try and kind of look at these and like mimic what other people are doing because it works there, so it could work here. So if Center College was to do what, say, MIT did there, then that wouldn't work. We're not an engineering school. That's not what we have. That's not what we need. We need to work towards our resources and what we have so we can build something that betters both the community and the college. So I looked at 3 models specifically of small liberal arts colleges like Center: Amherst, Middlebury, and Davidson. Each have very different functions as to what they do and how they engage their community and use the resources that they have available to them. Amherst is the Idea Accelerator, and it focuses on turning the kind of, I guess, theoretical ideas that students have into something that can be more tangible by connecting them with resources like funding and people who know how to start a business. Davidson's is kind of on that latter half of that, and they have what's called the Hurt Hub at Davidson, which focuses specifically on, it is an entrepreneurial incubator essentially, and it focuses on entrepreneurship and getting students the resources they need to be willing to start a business. Middlebury has the Center for Social Entrepreneurship, and it focuses on looking at the community around Middlebury and specifically analyzing how what Middlebury can do to kind of lift up the community and help by offering potential opportunities for improvement. So along these same kind of lines, Center College can build a model that works for Danville and points out kind of maybe potential problems in Danville or opportunities for change. And one second, sorry. Center College can work with Danville and the resources that it has, having all the smart people that it has at it and the resources that it has by, sorry, I'm freezing up, I apologize very much. Center College can work with the Danville community, use the resources that it has with all the intelligent people there in order to kind of lift up the community. But it has to do it properly, and if it doesn't do it properly, it's going to end up kind of falling flat on its face like all those incubators who tried to kind of copy MIT. So in order for this to work, I believe that it has to be something very flexible, and I plan on outlining it in my report, which is why I kind of use the term innovation hub, and I say specifically that it's very loose. It needs to be loose. And if this is implemented, it's going to help students because it's going to begin to kind of help that kind of critical thinking skills that we're developing in a liberal arts education by like practicing that and sort of showing the actual practical aspects of what that can do. It helps Danville because it's going to, as students do this and they are in the Danville community working with these people, they'll begin to see how their major has practical applications here, and they'll feel like Danville has a career to offer them, so they won't feel like they have to go to Lexington to get a job. They maybe will see an outlet for something that they can work on here. They'll stay here and improve the labor force of Danville by adding more younger laborers. And finally, this helps Center because, frankly, it looks great on a brochure. And yeah, there you go. So in conclusion, kind of my experience in this class has led me to believe that there's this opportunity where we can build a very mutualistic relationship between Center College and the Danville community. Thank you.
So I realize that it's 12:30 and it's time that I think it should be over. But I wanted to thank all these people who have helped support us, especially the people at Danville City Hall who provided us with this space. And thank you all for coming. And I will, I'll close at the moment, but if you would have questions or comments I want to speak to those people, you're welcome to.
Can I actually like to say something? Yeah, so I'm Ellen Brzezinski. I teach at the center and also work in the Center for Teaching and Learning. And Olivia is one of the students who's been working with me on the community needs assessment, as she described. And I didn't think about this until now, but many of the people in this room might be interested in coming to a longer presentation specifically focused on that community needs assessment and implications for practice for the community. So if you're interested in joining us and you have not already received an invitation, it's next Thursday morning at 9 a.m. In the Loyal County Extension Office. And I can't remember who mentioned snacks, but we'll actually up the game and we're going to do full breakfast. So, I mean, not hot breakfast, but like, you know, pastries and fruit. So please consider joining us next Thursday if that's an issue that interests you at the Extension Office. Thanks.
And so these students will be writing a report. Each of them will write a report in the next week or so that I would be glad to send to anybody who's interested. So I put my cards on the back there if you're interested in following up to see what they've decided to actually implement as their solution. But as I said, you're welcome to stay and ask them questions. But thanks very much for coming. I appreciate your time.
I want to tell you something. You're such a step up from my economics professor.
I don't know how to